Welcome to a brand new episode of the Jampack Report today for August the 5th of 2020. Of course, my name is Samuel Adams, and this is a daily gaming news podcast meant to bring you the hottest news you need to know from around the industry, hosted on YouTube and podcast services around the world 5 days a week. It is your one-stop shop for everything you need to know. So if you enjoyed the show and you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and keep coming back for more. But before we dive into today's show, I did want to say congratulations to the team at Vin for launching their 24/7 gaming and pop culture network. If you do want to check out the content itself, it is up on Vin.tv, streaming live right now on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Gaming, and so many more. Now, this is not sponsored, this is not an ad, I just wanted to let you guys know that Vin was available since we had been talking about it for the better course of about a year or so. This is kind of a modern day G4. Now, what is going to be interesting is to see how this content changes when G4 actually comes back next year. But regardless of the future competition Vin does face, it is going to be a very good looking program and lineup of programming in the coming weeks and months as we all continue to kind of shelter in place and do this whole pandemic thing. Very excited to see where the content goes. But to dive into today's biggest gaming news, PlayStation 5 can supposedly run all the PS4 games pre-whitelisting by Sony. Now, I want to make this very clear. This has not been confirmed. This has not been officially detailed. This is all coming to us from popular streamer Lance McDonald, who is primarily known for his Bloodborne and Dark Souls content. He recently posted a tweet stating that PlayStation 5 hardware will be compatible with all existing PS4 games, and then he deleted the tweet, but of course it was archived over on Reset Era. Quote, "There has been some confusion about this in the past, and I can clear it up now," wrote McDonald in a now-deleted tweet. The PlayStation 5 can run all PlayStation 4 games without per-game whitelisting. Sony continues to test titles, but the system will not prevent you from launching untested games. McDonald posted another tweet shortly after deleting his original one, which you can check out below, saying, quote, "I deleted a tweet out of respect for the platform holder. Feel free to interpret that however you would like." The latter half of that tweet complicates whether McDonald chose to delete it or was asked to, but the tweet continues to circulate regardless of its deletion. So let's talk about the potential of this being reality. I could absolutely see this happening because it would make sense to have a list of officially supported PlayStation 5 games and potentially games that might get a bit of a frame rate upgrade, that might get a bit of a boost in terms of resolution on the PlayStation 5. And that would be the top 100 PlayStation 4 games. So your Modern Warfares, your Spider-Man. Of course, hypothetically, there could be a remake of the 2018 Spider-Man, but let's go ahead and just use it for the sake of being used. Your God of Wars, your Horizon Zero Dawns, these will all be officially on the list. But for the thousands of other smaller games, it is supposedly possible that you could just simply be able to play these without any kind of improvements or without official support. If they run, they run. If they don't, they don't. And personally, I think this is the way that Sony should approach backwards compatibility. That makes a lot more sense. Because if you just enable it by default, you can just kind of let people roll the dice and see if their games work. Now, it is very wise to have a list of whitelisted games and make it very clear that these are the ones that have been tested and continually add to it over time. But it definitely makes sense just to open up the platform for all and say, hey, if it works, congratulations, you got lucky. But we will see what they say in the coming weeks. We could be seeing any kind of announcement, maybe even tomorrow during the State of Play, although that is highly unlikely. I want to make that very clear. But more news is bound to be coming in the next few weeks regarding what the PlayStation 5 is capable of. But speaking of which, a black version of the PS5 could be coming out, and it may have leaked online. Now, it is not this version. This is a mock-up from somebody on YouTube. But a new leaked image from a black edition of DualSense may hint at the existence of an all-black PS5 console down the line. Based on what we know so far, Sony's next-gen console will be shipping in white, but a recent leak from a black DualSense controller probably teases a black edition of the PlayStation 5. Of course, every pre-existing PlayStation 2, 3, and 4 were all launched in black as their default color and never received a white edition during their life cycle, except for some unique bundles. That said, things have been totally changed for the PlayStation 5 as it was announced in a brand new design, unlike all of the previous consoles from Sony, to have a mixture of black and white colors. With the default design of the PlayStation 5 looking pretty cool, there are a lot of fans who prefer to stay in black and get an all-black edition of the new console when it launches later this year. While no official confirmation has arrived yet, a new leaked image from a black DualSense controller fires up the rumors around the existence of a black PS5. And so here is the controller in question, and that is clearly a DualSense controller. Now, the buttons themselves are clearly the exact same buttons that are on the white version of the DualSense. So is this legitimate? On top of this, what is the purpose of this black controller? As shown in the image, the new DualSense is a full black edition of the controller with the white buttons. Personally, the author thinks the combination of white buttons and black body does not look cool enough. Maybe if the buttons were black or gray, it would seem much better. If this is going to be the final design for PS5 Black Edition, I would rather get the white color. So I've seen a lot of hypotheses circulating around there online, and it could be one of two things in my mind. This could be a very early developer controller because, of course, this is a very low resolution image, but it looks like this is more of a smooth matte. This looks like a very early build of the controller. So this could have been sent to developers for testing, and that's what I think this controller's purpose actually was, because you see, it just doesn't look good. I don't know how else to put it. The white buttons on the black do not look great. And so if you assume that the white version is going to be the default version, then the other option would be that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the resources were a little bit smaller and less attainable, so they ended up having to go with the white buttons on the black controller for the black edition of the PlayStation 5, if one does exist. Now again, personally, I think this is going to be the case of the developer version getting the black controller that isn't as finished and pristine as the white version. That makes the most sense to me. But I did want to report on this because a lot of people have been talking about this little mock-up, and again, this is not real. This is not what the black PlayStation 5 looks like. But of course, this controller definitely exists, at least to some capacity. Now let's talk a bit more about PlayStation because according to, of course, official reports, no more platform exclusive characters are coming to the Avengers. Crystal Dynamics, the studio developing Marvel's Avengers, stirred up some controversy this week when it announced that Spider-Man is coming to the game post-release, but only on PS4 and PS5. In an interview with IGN Japan, and reported in English by IGN, Crystal Dynamics studio head Scott Amos explained a little about how and why that exclusivity deal came about, citing the relationship between Marvel and Sony, which spans both the game and film industries. However, if you are worried about more characters being restricted to specific systems, it does not seem like that's happening. Quote, "That is the only character that we are doing that way," Amos told IGN Japan. All of the other post-launch heroes, like Hawkeye, will be available to people who own the game on any platform and for free. Of course, the game is launching on September the 4th on PS4, Xbox One, and PC, with next-gen versions to come later, and you can find Game Informer's hands-on coverage of the beta if you did so choose. This is good news. Of course, we talked about this story earlier in the week. I am not a fan of Spider-Man coming exclusively to the PlayStation 5 or PS4 versions of the game, and that's coming from somebody who owns a PlayStation 4. I also own an Xbox, but this is very anti-consumer in a lot of different ways. So to hear that there are no more platform exclusive characters coming to the Avengers is certainly a breath of fresh air, and I'm going to have to go listen to that interview myself, or at least read the transcript of it, to get more context as to what this situation was. But now things are beginning to make a lot more sense. With Marvel's relationship with Sony, it does seem to be one that is strong enough to warrant getting Spider-Man as an in-game exclusive on the PlayStation ecosystem. But that doesn't necessarily make it right. But speaking of the other side, Xbox Game Pass is adding some very significant games in the month of August, including Darksiders Genesis, Final Fantasy VII, and UnderMine. Now this is not to be confused with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Oh no, that's not even out on Xbox yet. That is a PlayStation console exclusive, and of course exclusive in general until the 3rd of March 2021. But the games coming to Xbox Game Pass include Darksiders Genesis on console, It Lurks Below on console and PC, the Dark Pictures anthology Man of Medan coming on consoles, Trailmakers coming to console and PC, UnderMine coming to console and PC, and Xenocrisis coming to console and PC. On August the 13th, you can pick up Final Fantasy VII on console and PC, and just in case you missed it, another surprise game. They snuck this one in last week. F1 2019 is coming to console and PC versions of Game Pass, with downloadable content and game updates coming to a variety of other games. And of course, there are plenty of other perks coming with your Xbox Game Pass subscriptions. But needless to say, the two biggest additions to this month's lineup are absolutely Darksiders Genesis and, in my opinion, Final Fantasy VII. Because although this is not going to be your new version of the game, the newest remake that came out this year on the PS4, these are still two very significant games. I personally have been looking forward to playing Darksiders Genesis since it was revealed on the Stadia stream that showcased that entire platform last year. So to finally be able to dive in and check that one out is something I'm absolutely going to take advantage of. And if you want to check out any of these games, they're going to be coming out during the month of August on Game Pass. And as per usual, you can probably expect a few more additions to the lineup before the end of the month. But a brand new report is showing that Obsidian is working on a fourth game right now. Sawyer started something. Microsoft is giving Obsidian Entertainment all of the work it can handle. It appears as though the developer has at least 4 games in production. Obsidian's design director Josh Sawyer mentioned on Twitter yesterday that he is currently directing his own project. That means Obsidian is currently working on Grounded, which launched in early access, Outer Worlds DLC, the first is due next month with the second coming in 2021, Avowed, the newly announced first-person fantasy RPG for Xbox Series X, and whatever Sawyer has going on. In the past, Sawyer has said that he wants his next game to be a historical RPG. He elaborated by explaining that he does not consider Pillars of Eternity to be a historical RPG, but rather that it needs to be set in Earth's history with some fantasy element to qualify it. However, that was prior to the Microsoft acquisition, so a lot could have changed. Sawyer's directing credits are Fallout New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity and its White March expansion, and Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire. We are all but assured that Obsidian will make an Outer Worlds sequel at some point, but that's probably not Sawyer's baby. Given how the first one turned out, it seems sensible to let Leonard Boyarsky, there we go, and Tim Kaine direct the next one too. Obsidian has a lot going on, and that means we will likely have to wait a bit to hear about Sawyer's next game. This continues to signify the growth of Obsidian as a brand for specifically the Microsoft Xbox Game Studios brand, because Obsidian is kind of their shining jewel in a lot of different ways. I see Obsidian as somewhat of a 343 or the Coalition. It is a very large name to have in that Xbox Game Studios fold. And to see that they are working on 4 games, technically, if you want to break it down like that, is something that is incredibly admirable, and it shows that there is a lot of potential coming over the course of the next few weeks and years and months in the Obsidian world. Now, of course, Grounded is going to have a very long tail on it. The game just launched in early access, which essentially means the entire life of the game still remains. On top of that, 2 DLCs for Outer Worlds is going to take a significant amount of time, so you can go ahead and assume that both of those are going to be at least a year's worth of support, if not more. On top of that, Avowed, we have no idea how deep in development Avowed actually is, so it could be 25%, it could be 10%, it could be 50%. We will have to wait and see. But this new project could be something that comes out in 2023 or 2024. Who knows? But Obsidian is certainly working on a lot of different projects, and that is good because the team is continuing to expand, and I cannot wait to see what they come up with. Tons of talent over there at Obsidian. But to round out today's show, for the Nintendo fans out there, Pikmin 3 Deluxe is hitting Switch in just a few months. And what is this random summer of instant announcements? Who knows, man? Who knows? By the way of a quick email with zero fanfare, we learned that Pikmin 3 will be hitting the Switch in deluxe form. It is actually out on October the 30th, priced at $59.99, and will launch on the Switch with new content, more options for co-op play, and a range of settings that make things easier for newcomers to jump in. The biggest thing is the ability to play the whole story in co-op mode with a friend, as well as the addition of new side story missions that are also co-op enabled. Oh, and all previous DLC will be included too, as well as new mechanics like lock-on targeting, extra difficulty options, and optional hints. Yes to everything. No joke, the author says, my wife and I still play Pikmin 3's co-op bingo mode to this day. I am beyond excited for this port. So, of course, Pikmin is a Nintendo icon. This game came out on the Wii U, if I remember correctly, and now everything is going to be bundled together. I believe this was announced sometime around 2017, 2018, something insane like that. And so the fact that it's finally going to be coming out within a matter of weeks is very shocking to me, but I am excited to see how fans receive it. Of course, I don't own a Nintendo Switch myself, but I know a ton of people are going to be very excited to get their hands on Pikmin 3 on Nintendo's newest piece of hardware. But that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. If you enjoyed today's show, drop me a like down below and let me know what you think about everything we talked about here today. But specifically, will you play your PlayStation 4 library on the PlayStation 5 if you can play any and every game? Would love to hear what you have to say about that. But until tomorrow, you guys have a fantastic rest of your night. I'll talk to you soon, and peace.